Well, this one's definitely one of the most bizarre recordings in my collection. Back in 1956, my good friend Sam Hollerton mentioned a case he had read about in an old newspaper from 1939. It was about a man who had gone missing in the Appalachian Mountains and mentioned a self-recorded music tape that was found in his room. Knowing my interest in rare recordings, Sam gave me the newspaper. According to the article, the man went missing near the Clearwater swamplands, but didn't specify where exactly. I did some digging and found a small town called Fanny Rocks near those swamps. I decided to visit and planned to stay for about 2 weeks. Fortunately, the host of the guest house I stayed at was well connected and knew almost everyone in town. I mentioned I collect rare recordings and was looking for someone who might know more about the case and the tape. The host just laughed and said, "You came all the way from New York just to hear that crazy story of old Lester Hick." It turned out that Mr. Hick was a farmer who lived on a small piece of land with his wife. They were kind of outsiders and weren't often seen in town. Despite that, they were kind enough to welcome me, and we sat down to talk. Mr. Hick was quite surprised that someone would travel over 500 miles because of an almost 20-year-old newspaper article. But in the same breath, he assured me my journey wasn't in vain. Mr. Hick told me he was born and raised in a place called Misty Wood, deep within the swamp. In 1939, his father, Jonathan Hick Sr., was the sheriff there. Mr. Hick agreed to tell me what happened in Misty Wood. Though he seemed a bit concerned, I wouldn't believe him. Just like the people of Fanny Rocks, he clearly suffered from being sneered at by the townfolks. Nevertheless, he trusted me and began to recount his memories. He told me the missing man in 1939 was Isaac Whiling, a bit of a crazy daydreamer, always talking to himself and somewhat paranoid but harmless. He was also a dedicated banjo player, like me. Misty Wood was just about 40 old wooden houses and a grocery store, so everyone knew him, though most ignored him. There was an old lady called Miss Jenny who gave him a room to stay and looked after him. No one knew any of his relatives, so Mr. Hick assumed she was the only person Whiling really trusted. It was known Mr. Whiling would sometimes disappear for days, and not even Miss Jenny knew where he'd go. Mr. Hick told me Misty Wood had a reputation of being cursed because of its turbulent past, though he never believed the rumors. But that year, people, including him, repeatedly started seeing some strange blue lights. Hick said they seemed to come from within the surrounding woods and sometimes appeared over a nearby hill. People were scared and decided not to talk about it, but everyone knew something was going on in the woods. Then one day, Mr. Hick Sr. gathered volunteers after Miss Jenny reported Whiling hadn't been seen for 2 weeks. She was worried something had happened to him. Mr. Hick, in his 20s and a tough young man, decided to join the search team. After 2 days without progress, they moved further into the woods. Then, on the 3rd day, one of the men spotted an unknown cabin near a forest edge. As they approached, they encountered a strange and frightening scene. Mr. Hick remembered that the cabin's roof was missing. It didn't look like it had collapsed, but as if it had been cut clean off. They noticed that the pine trees near the cabin were all dead and dry. Scattered all over the scene, dead birds lay in the grass, and Hick said it was as silent as if the sounds of the forest were avoiding the place. I could feel these memories stirring up Mr. Hick at that point. Hick remembered spotting Whiling's banjo on the porch, so he knew they were on the right track. The sheriff told the group to stay back. Hick watched his father trying to enter the cabin, but the door was blocked. Same for the small windows. It took 3 men to crack open the door. Inside they found a mess. Empty cans, broken jars, cryptic carvings on the cabin floor, decayed food, but no trace of Isaac Whiling. Sheriff Hick found a single boot next to an old chair. It clearly belonged to him. Leaving the cabin to investigate the surroundings, Mr. Hick noticed something in the grass and called the others. Some spots on the ground appeared to be covered in some sort of black dust. One of the men took some of it on a fingertip, and to everyone's surprise, it turned into a transparent liquid between his fingers like melting ice crystals. All of a sudden, everyone nearby started coughing, and their eyes began to water. Hick remembered a strong metallic smell that burned like fire in his chest, and he had to back away from the fluid. The man whose finger had been covered with the liquid suffered strong burns afterward, and even water couldn't reduce the strong odor. Not knowing what they were dealing with, they returned to Misty Wood and told the people. Miss Jenny broke out in tears and the whole town was unsure what to do. We all decided to let it be and never talk about it again, he had told me. Though the blue lights stopped appearing, most people, including the Hick family, left Misty Wood and scattered all over the nearby towns. Before leaving, Hick saw Miss Jenny handing a wooden box to his father. She seemed to be very distraught and upset. At least that was Hick's impression. Years later, when Mr. Hick Sr. had passed away, he found the box in his father's estate. Inside was a single magnetic tape and a drawing of strange-looking human-like creatures. The tape turned out to contain a song Isaac Willing had recorded in 1939, according to the label. At that point, Mr. Hick stood up, left the room, and brought out this tape you see here. He looked me in the eyes and said, "Keep it, I don't want to think about all this any longer." Well, it's not known who told the Clearwater News Time about the incident and the tape, but they didn't mention Misty Wood or Isaac Wiling's name, so it was likely just a rumor turned into an article. Lucky for me. Otherwise, I'd never have found this rare music gem. Of course, I listened to the tape as soon as I got back to my studio in New York, and let me tell you, no other recording has ever left me so confused and uneasy, especially with this kind of backstory. I've prepared a playback of the original tape, so you can hear it for yourself.
Out to the pitch black cabin I go, where I bury my life in my pitch black soul. I sit down on the porch in the pine wood shade, cutting the daylight like a blade. There's just two sounds as the sun sets low, the whispering trees and my old banjo. When the sun is gone, I hide inside and barricade up to survive the night. I lay on the floor and shiver with fear for the strange and noises from the woods I hear. See them through the door crack as they look inside, their eyes big and black, skin as pale as moonlight. One day they will take me away to the stars, punish my sin buried in the yard. Each night is a pain I got to live through, for I see when they're gone is a life right through. The cattle is crippled, the pine's all dead, the meadow like smell and turns swallows like rain. People in town say I lost my mind, I'm all on my own with no help to find. So out to the pitch black cabin I go, where I bury my life in my pitch black soul. I sit down on the porch in the pine wood shade, cutting the sunlight like a blade. There's just two sounds as the sun sets low, the whispering trees and my old banjo. Leave me alone.
Before I left his house, Lester Hick asked me for a favor. I had to promise I would never tell his story and would never mention his name or anything that could lead to him. But well, I got the tape now, and your station paid me a shitload of money for this interview. So fuck it.